Good evening, everyone. Hello, boys and girls and children of all ages. What an exciting evening here at the Albany Institute of History and Art. And all your moms and dads and family, welcome as well. I'm Mike Tucker, the chair of the board of the Albany Institute, and I want to welcome you this evening for this very, very exciting program. We're thrilled to welcome internationally known artist, beloved author and illustrator, Jan Brett, here this evening. Let's give a big round of applause. She's here tonight with her husband, Joe Hearn, and as many of you may know, and all of you young people will learn, Jan Brett began her illustrative career in the 70s, the 1970s. Initially, her art appeared in books written by others. But beginning in 1981, all that changed when she began to publish books that she wrote and also that she illustrated. When she published, and that first book that she published, that she wrote and illustrated, was Fritz and the Beautiful Horses. Since then, her art has appeared in her own books. Though she lives in Massachusetts, she focuses on tales that take inspiration from the richness and diversity of cultures all over the globe. Both Jan and her husband Joe, who's a bassist for the Boston Symphony Orchestra, travel extensively to research and experience firsthand the cultures, topography, and wildlife reflected in her art. She also is an animal lover, and Jan Brett breeds and shows her large flock of fancy chickens. And I just had my photograph taken with one of them right out in the lobby. She has won many, many awards at regional and national fairs, and I hope that you all get to meet the chicken on the way while you're here this evening. Also, I want you to know that we're very, very glad to have you all here. I know many of you are friends of Jan's over the years, and we're very grateful to her for extending the invitation so that you could be with us. The Albany Institute of History and Art was founded in 1791, over 220 years ago, and we hope that you will all come back and visit us in the future. We want to give special thanks to our lead sponsors, Alan P. Goldberg, Bill Harris and Holly Katz, the late Charles M. Little III, Daniel Wolf, and Dr. Douglas Cohn. Again, we thank you for being here, and it's now my pleasure, for the first time at an event at the Albany Institute, to welcome our newly appointed director, Kirsten Ortloff. Please welcome her.
Everybody, it's wonderful to see you all here tonight. I'm super excited to get things going, so I'll keep it really brief, but I do wanted to mention that if you haven't yet seen Hedgie in person, Hedgie is here with us tonight, so make sure you get your photo taken with them on your way out. You'll see them kind of wandering around, and I think we might have a guest appearance coming up very shortly in this very room. So, without further ado, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Kristen Ulrich, and I hope to see you all at events moving forward throughout the summer. We've got a lot of great programs, and we'll be in touch, so enjoy this evening's program. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jan Brett. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm just amazed that you would spend a beautiful July evening here with me. I'm so flattered. Thank you. And I think there may be some aspiring artists here. I hope so, because I'm going to tell you how I got the idea for Cozy and draw you a picture and kind of make it like a little bit of an art lesson. And then at the end, I'd love to say a few words about why I love to draw, and maybe you will feel the same way. Well, ever since I was a little kid, I loved to draw. And I thought, if this was my job, how wonderful could it be to color all day long? And now that it is my job, it's even better than I thought, because I can just live in this world of my own as I'm creating the books. A lot of children will ask me, how do I get ideas for each story? And a lot come from my animals that I have or places that I travel. So I'm going to focus on Cozy, and it'll be a a breath of blizzardy air coming into this room, and I won't read it, I'll just read a few little excerpts about it, because I don't have that much time. I want to give you things that you can use when you're doing your own writing and illustrating, some kind of helpful hints. And if you went into my kindergarten class and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would have said, children's book illustrator. And so if that made you feel a little bit like a shiver, because that's what you feel like too, then it's probably going to happen, because most people said, you should be a teacher, Jan. I said, no, I'm going to be an illustrator. So hold on to those dreams that you have, because they can be kind of your life work, which makes you very fulfilled to do something that you love. Well, my daughter moved to Alaska, and she said, Mom, you wouldn't believe this farm near Anchorage, an hour north of Anchorage in Palmer. It's a muskox farm. And I don't know, do you know about muskox? And I said, I remember I had a National Geographic book when I was a little girl, and it had this beautiful painting of a muskox, and they looked like they're out of the Pleistocene, which is like the last ice age in North America, when there were woolly mammoths, there were woolly rhinos, there were saber-toothed cats, and there were also muskox, but guess what survived? The muskox. And they didn't do too well in North America because they were hunted out in the 1800s, because they have this warm woolly coat, and everybody wanted to have it because it was warm for the cold temperatures in the north. In the 1900s, a man, John Teal, decided he wanted to reintroduce them to North America from Greenland. There was still a very active herd there in Greenland. He brought 37 of them over here, and they grew up and thrived. And so at the muskox farm in Palmer, they are semi-habituated, which means that they have a scientist and a manager that kind of make sure that they're healthy. And they also coat this beautiful coat into kiviot, which is the world's warmest fiber. And I brought some to show you. Well, this is my hat. It's very, very warm. And it's made out of kiviot. And if you've ever tried knitting with it, it's really hard to knit with. I'm a big knitter. But this is the actual kiviot. And so when you see in my book about the kiviot kind of coming off that muskox during shedding season and flying through the air, and the hunks of it landing on plants and stuff in spring in Alaska, that really happens. So at my signing, I'll put this on my desk and you can feel how soft it is. So there's the long guard hairs, which forms like a skirt, and then there's the thick undercoat, which is one of the warmest fibers in Earth. There might be some goat that also is, I just really I made my talk now a little bit longer than it would normally be. This is how I can talk to you without yelling. So I was fascinated by these muskox, and at the farm they had a taxidermy one, which means one that has passed away, and they stuffed it like a big stuffed animal. And they had this long skirt, and I said, what's under there? And so I just said, it was a stuffed animal, it wasn't alive. And went under there, and it was like a little room with the fur coming down. And I thought, wow, somebody could live in there. And I thought of my story, which would be all these animals, Arctic animals, would shelter. Because these muskox can live in 50 degrees below zero for like weeks in the high Arctic. And they don't live where there's a ton of snow, because they have to dig, they have their hooves are specially formed so they can dig through the ice, and then they eat the sedges and plants that are all, their winter forage. And that's how they survive. So this is my book dummy. So if you guys want to write a story, I usually write it out longhand and then do it on the computer. And then I will do this book dummy, and my publisher, I have an editor and an art director. And we look through it and we say, Jen, I have one idea of having a little flap, and you can see underneath the fur, and there were the animals. Too expensive to do. I could not do it. And then sometimes they'll give me really good hints, like, oh, you put Cozy's face too close to the fold of the book. So these are all things I can discover by doing this little dummy. And this only takes about 3 weeks to do. Whereas if I do a page in the book, like let's just take the jacket, it would take me about a week to do that. So this is a kind of quick little roadmap that I can do. And then we all talk about it, and the editor talks about the words, and the art director talks about the pictures, and they're all to try not to hurt my feelings, but they also are helping me see things that I might not see, because you get close to it. Which reminds me, I'm going to tell you some interesting little hints about drawing, and one of them is, if you ever are working on a drawing and it doesn't look quite right to you, you can put it in a mirror and it'll be like looking at it for the first time, because everything will be backwards. And so it's like looking at it with fresh eyes. So sometimes if you're looking at a picture and you can see, oh, my character is like tilting, or the hands are like, the thumbs are on the wrong side, and when you're drawing it, you may not have thought of those things, but then when you see it in the mirror, it's a helpful tool. And I also use the mirror when I'm making an expression of the animal, because animals, they have their own way of looking at things, and you study their expressions, but I don't have muskox in the backyard. So a lot of times I'll make the expression in the mirror and then try to put it on the muskox. So it's definitely fiction. So I'm just going to start out my book a little bit, and then I will draw the picture for you and make it. So this is the end papers. If you know the parts of the book, it's kind of interesting if you love books. The end papers is where I can do anything I want to kind of get in the mood for the book. So these are all the beautiful lichens that you can see in the far north. They're very vibrant. And actually sometimes hunters will look for certain lichens because they know that animals have been there. Like there might be, let's see, what would a hunter maybe looking for? Elk. And that the lichen will grow where the elk have been. So that I thought was kind of an interesting tidbit. So this is how my book starts out. Storms rolled across the tundra when Cozy the muskox was separated from his herd. He was used to being with his family. His mother and father had named him Cozy because his silky coat was so soft and thick. Cozy braced himself against the wind, and his thick coat warmed him like a blanket. So I made this picture of Cozy so that you could get used to what the main character is going to look like, because I would suspect that most people have not seen a live muskox because they will not thrive in a zoo in the lower 48. They just don't like it. It's too warm. In a tussock, a mother lemming's pups were squeaking loudly, "I'm cold, I'm cold, I'm cold." She used a triple carry to tunnel them into a new spot where she saw a towering mountain of fur. You can probably guess what that is. In no time, the lemming family settled into Cozy's left hoof. She whispered, "Quiet voices in the muskox will not notice us." So my editor said, "You can't say triple carry, no one will know what that is." But I got to stick up for myself and say, "This one time let me say it, okay? They'll be able to figure it out," meaning the audience. And so I got to keep it. But I always listen to them because I respect my editor. She's kind of like a teacher would be for you. She doesn't want to break your spirit, but she wants you to make sure that you don't make any silly mistakes in your work that aren't going to help your learning, and that's the way my editor is with me. So I'll read one more page, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the borders. Snowshoe Hare, feeling chilly, had the same idea. "Master Muskox," he added politely, "may I wait out the storm under the protection of your very thick coat?" Cozy was happy for the company and well aware that a lemming family had snuck in. He said, "Welcome, Snowshoe Hare, but mind those lemmings, quiet voices and gentle thumping only." So there you can see the Arctic hare, which we got to see in Alaska, because in this winter they're white, and then the summer their coat gradually turns brown. And we saw one like half and half, which is really cool. And then on the on the side panel, you can see the next animal that's gonna come along, which will be a snowy owl. So I think I'm gonna, once we get the idea that all these animals are gonna come in and be under Cozy's long skirt-like, you see how those guard hairs form like a little skirt? And if you see a video, like if you look on YouTube for muskox, that is very shiny and swings around and it's really beautiful. And they're quite active. It's like an Arctic goat. They're not that big. I'd say the head is like to here, but they're just very, very fluffy. So there's, oh, I wanted to show you about that. So this is an interesting thing because we live in an age where we want to respect people's cultures. So in Alaska, where the book is set, there are many peoples that have lived there for thousands of years. And they have the most, almost some of the most beautiful artwork in the world. And boy, would I love to copy it because I love it so much. But that artwork is part of their culture, and it's almost like one clan may not be able to use another clan's imagery. And so I had to respect that, which once I got over the fact that I couldn't draw the beautiful things, that I had to make up my own. And one of the materials that people used are the abalone, and that was okay to use. And this is an abalone shell, and it's very beautiful, and there's only one variety that lives in the coast, the Gulf of Alaska, called pinto abalone. So this one actually says Philippines on it. So it didn't come from Alaska, but it's the same beautiful inside part, like they might call it mother of pearl, but it looks like the beautiful atmosphere sky that you see in Alaska, because the sun, even though it's dark longer, the sunsets and sunrises are also longer. So you get these beautiful colors, and the cloudiness kind of reflects the setting sun. And I thought it would be perfect for Cozy because it had that beautiful shimmering and also very hard to draw. So I had to challenge myself. Which, don't you love to challenge yourself? That makes it really fun to achieve something. So I'm going to do my drawing. Now, normally I would use watercolors. I have a small paintbrush, and I don't use the classic watercolor approach, which some of you may be wonderful watercolorists, and you would say, that's not really what you're supposed to be doing. I use it almost like a colored pencil. I use a very dry brush, they call it, not too much water. And I never did watercolors until I was out of college, I think, because they're pretty hard to do. I would use markers or pencils or pen and ink, because watercolors are a little bit hard, and I just like added things slowly. So I wouldn't be discouraged if you get a set of watercolors and they're a little bit hard to figure out how much water to put in. It's kind of a technique, they say. And practice makes perfect. And that's a wonderful thing about drawing. The more you practice, the better you get at it. It's just like a human skill and ability. And the better you get at it. So I'm going to make some simple shapes so that I can draw Cozy. And this is the male muskox. And well, I'm going to start out with like a kind of a circle, not kind of a circle, a circle. And then I'm going to have his head come down. It's almost like a Dixie cup, a little small one. That's going to make his muzzle. And then the back line is like almost like a goat. It kind of has a dip in the back, like a suede back. And then I'm just going to make a rectangle. And that's going to form where his skirt is. You know, where the long guard hairs fall. And then he's got these very cute, chubby little legs underneath. The guard hairs with this beautiful brownish gray color. And then if you pick up the skirt, the legs are almost white. They're really cute. And then he has a little white saddle right here. It almost looks like snow fell on his back, but it's not. It's white fur. So here's his little chubby legs. And they have cloven hooves. And this helps them with their, if you look at their hooves, they almost have like a sharp edge around them so they can go and forage and crush the ice. And they also use their horns. Both the males and females have horns. So antlers fall off and are regrown every year. But with the muskox, they have horns like a goat, and they stay there unless when they're bashing each other, which is what the males do to be attractive to the females, and who's the strongest. Sometimes they'll break one, and in their ardor. And so I'm going to make the horns, which this is probably the hardest shape I would ever have to describe. because it looks like a little bit of a snake, maybe with a big head. But that's the horn, and the center is called the boss, where they join. It's very thick. So let's say you have a herd of female muskox. There will be one male, and he will be the big man. And in order to decide who's the big man, they start from a long distance away, and they gallop as fast as they can, and they bash each other in the head. And sometimes it's really hurty, and they have to lie down and recover. So here comes his little nose, and their noses are kind of white too and very cute. It's like a little muzzle, and it's kind of goat-like. And then in the language, the indigenous language, there are so many different groups of people there. There is the Athabascans, which have been in Alaska for 12 to 20,000 years, and then there's Yupik, which are mostly live in the seacoast, Upikik, and then there's the Aleuts, which there is another name that they're liking better than Aleuts right now. If somebody knows about Alaska, they can correct me on what that proper name is to call them. It's really important to learn these things because I respect that. And I wanted to have it. Oh, but so their name for the muskox is Umingmak, which I think is so cool because it's got 2 O's. And the thing is that they aren't an ox. They're more like a cross between a sheep and a goat, but more like an art of goat, not an ox. And they don't smell. I mean, I could not smell them. I got to go to the farm, and I got to, they had this really old one that had been brought up by a bottle fed, and I got to go and, I have to tell this story. I hope it doesn't make my talk too long. So I went to the muskox farm and said I would like my picture taken with a muskox. And so they said, well, we got the perfect one for you. His name is Little Man, and he's been brought up by bottle fed, and he's very tame, and he's very old. And we'll have to cross the field that have all these big males in it. Don't worry, just stay with us. How are you at climbing fences? And I said, it was a big cattle fence, like metal, about this high. And so I said, I mean, they have a huge habitat, but they like to be where the food is. So they were all around where the food was. And so we climbed over the fence, and I rode horses and stuff. I wasn't really afraid. And so we got about halfway across, and one of the males started going, oof, oof, and making these loud bellows and doing like a cartoon bull with his legs and his front feet and snorting, and steam was coming out. And then he lowered his head, and then the 2 people that were with me, surprisingly, were over 6 feet tall. And they said, don't worry, just stay with us. And then they made themselves like stars, which is like what you do if you see a mountain lion or any kind of wild creature that could be scared by your bodily immensity. And so they did the stars, and I was like, okay. And it like charged, and then it stopped right close by. And then Joe, I forgot to introduce. Joe, this is my husband, Joe. Joe goes with me when I do my research trips, and he happened to not see this one. He usually plays the double bass in the Boston Symphony. So he was a little bit out of his comfort zone in the very, very cold weather out there. But, so I was like, wow, and we finally got to Little Man, and I smelled him, and he smelled really good. I put my nose right in that rock, and it was very, very good smelling it. And if you come to my signing, you can smell the muskox fur. You get a little bit of a smell. If you like to knit, and you can smell the sheep, smell of the wool, it's a little bit like that. But not stinky at all. So I don't know why they call them that. I think probably when they are in rut or in season, the males might be a little bit. But I was there in the fall too, and they were very helpful to me. As a matter of fact, Mark Austin, who is the curator of the Muskox Museum, well, it's like a museum plus a habitat for them. And then they comb them for the kiviot, which is the yarn. And then the people that from the villages that are long-time Alaskans knit beautiful things from them, and they use this special stitch that has like little air holes in it. There's an example in the exhibits. And it's very beautiful and very warm and very complicated. So he came running out to the car and he goes, Jan, don't draw a tail on it. And I go, oh no, I won't. I know there's no tail. I mean, they have a little one, but it's so far in that fur you wouldn't see it. So then he said, and don't forget their pupils are horizontal like a goat. Does anybody have goats? No goats. Goats! And their eyes, the horizontal pupil, right? That's why they're more related to goats, I think, because they have that horizontal. I did not know that, and so I had to go back to my book and change all the pupils to be horizontal rather than round, or like a snake can have vertical ones, right? So those are the kind of things that makes it fun to do the research. So there's a your vertical pupil, and now I will do some coloring in. Now he is a little bit distorted because I'm trying to concentrate on talking. And if you are an artist, you know that you kind of live in an interior world, which means that you're thinking in your head a lot, and it's always a big shock to have to talk to people and make sense. So I'm going to try really hard to do that now, is talk to people and make sense. Okay, so I'm going to show shading. I'm just going around the whole muskox to try to make it look more 3D, which is just a way of, I would do this in a much more subtle way with my watercolor. And actually, I could really use a lighter gray. This is a little, his hooves are kind of a grayish. And I got to adopt a little muskox named Teal, named after the man who started the project of having them come from Greenland in the 1930s, John Teal. So she's named after, and so every time I go to the muskox farm, when I visit my daughter, I go see Teal, and she's doing well. I think I have a nice light, no, I don't have a lighter gray, that's it. Okay, so now I'm going to use get this done with right now. They kind of have a brownish eye. So I'll make a little sparkle left in the eye. And I would say that if you're drawing, probably one of the things that you could concentrate on is when you're drawing a character, whether it's an animal, a person, even a robot, pay a lot of attention when you're doing the eyes, because as human beings, that's where we look to try to find out what the person is thinking, what the dog or cat is thinking, what the robot is thinking, if you're looking at a book that's illustrated robots, that's where we look. So here's a little demonstration where I lose my dignity. I'm going to cover up my face and I'm going to make an expression. Could be happy, sad, scared, surprised, and I'm going to turn around and you'll only see my eyes, and I want you to guess what I'm thinking, okay? Like those ones I gave you would be a good start. Okay, so ready? Here's the first one. Okay, here's the normal eyes.
Happy.
Yes. Very good. So what happens is, when you smile, your cheeks are pushed up by your muscles. And your eyes get more crescent shape, maybe. And maybe I'm looking very animated, and so my eyebrows are going up a little bit. And that's kind of subtle, and that's why I like that mirror, because I can notice things about my face and put it on the animal. Animals don't have eyebrows, but an artist's trick is to make a little bunch of fur kind of looks like an eyebrow, because eyebrows are pretty expressive. So you want to do another one?
Yes.
Okay, here comes number 2. So here my corners of my mouth are down, so that my eyes are kind of droopy, and then hopefully my eyebrows are going up here, and that kind of gives a sad look. I'm using a little body language too, so think about that when you're drawing your characters, is that you can tell a lot. Like, let's say, I'll save it to last. I'm going to do, human beings are quite nuanced about things. They can think of many complex emotions at the same time and different thoughts at the same time. So when you're drawing your character, try to think of the thoughts that the character is thinking about and analyze it, and your drawing will really come alive that way. So I'm going to do one that is going to be a kind of a combo. So see if you just say anything that you think.
Surprise. What?
Surprise! Well, I was trying to look like in wonderment, so you are surprised when you're in wonderment. I was trying to pretend there was like a baby dinosaur on this corner, alien landing from a spaceship in that corner. So I was looking, my eyes widened, so I have a better field of vision. Because like when you see something that's abnormal or unusual, you might open your eyes really wide in order to take everything in. And then I look, my eyebrows are going up because like I can't believe it. And then my mouth could be open because maybe I'm gonna scream next. And then I did a little body language, like I put one foot forward because the flight or fright. Am I afraid am I gonna go meet that character, or am I gonna run off and go the other way because of the character? So if you're thinking of those things, and you'll see how your drawing will captivate the audience and yourself, because you're probably your best audience. Because like when I draw, I don't really think about drawing for a person as much as I think about drawing for myself. So it's not really selfish, but it is the truth. So I'm just going to use some browns and take this time to tell you about how, I would say one of the things that I love doing is layering my colors. And the thing about markers is they're somewhat translucent, which means that you can see through them, as opposed to opaque, which means would be a solid color, which can make a very nice drawing. And that's your decision about how you want to do it. The muzzle is a little bit lighter. So I'm using this, let's see, what do we call this in this marker? It's probably like toaster. They have really good names on these. And I'm just gonna like sketch it, and I'm leaving a little bit of white space because almost everything in nature has a little shine to it. If it's in the sunshine, and I can put some other colors in. I'm working mostly on the outside. You could say I was scribbling. And then I've got another more of a duller grayer brown. And then I'm going to use these markers. If you ever want to have some fun with some drawing, they're called Prismacolor. But most art stores will have these, and they have sets that have like 400 colors. Very expensive. You have to get it for a big present. And they're really great, except you have to put the caps back on. That would be the biggest problem with it. But I think if you had a microscope and you could see all these colors one on top of the other, you'd see all these little molecules dancing around, because as the light hit the surface, you have these different colors, and that's one thing that makes the picture look vibrant. I mean, my picture is going to be done in a very sketchy way, but if I'm using my watercolors, then I would definitely blend my colors and try to not just use a matte color. Matte means all the same. But that's just me, because you will have your own technique. I one time at a book signing saw this little boy, and he had a blue ballpoint pen, and it would make little bleed marks where it kind of smudged out, not on purpose. And he used those, and he made this beautiful picture out of a smudgy blue ballpoint. And that's being a true artist. So I think I'm running out of browns. I'm going to use this reddish one to fill in some of those white places. And he's almost done. If I had a lighter color, I would do his little legs and try to make them look as if they were 3D, three-dimensional. Because I want people to believe in the character. And it is fiction. Oh, an artist always should sign their work. So I would recommend that you do that. Because the thing that's great about drawing is you get better every time you draw, if you're like thinking about it, thoughtful about it. And so like if I put, even though I've been drawing for all these years, and I always, in my heart, I'm always trying to make the picture a little bit better than the last one. So I'm going to sign my name, and I'll put the date. I'll just put July 2022. So if you do that and put it in a drawer, and then like maybe let's say around the holiday time in December, you can take it out of the drawer and compare it with one of the ones that you've done recently, and you probably say, you know, I really mastered a certain technique and it's really changed my drawing a lot. I really like it. I'm putting a little texture in his horns, his little muzzle. He's got a little bit of a happy smile there, which is anthropomorphizing him, because I actually are not smiling. But it helps me tell the story. So there's Cozy. And let's see, I'll just finish up the book and then just tell you one last thing, and then we can have time for book signing. So Cozy has all these animals one by one come under his big skirt of fur and spend the winter there. And there's one time that I use my artistic license, which one of the animals is a Wolverine. And the thing about Wolverine fur is that nothing sticks to it. But he seemed to be the perfect animal to fall into an ice floe and be covered with ice balls. And that really couldn't happen because the ice balls would not stick to his fur. So I had to use my artistic license about that. And then this part is really true to life, which is when the huskies come along, he's very wary of them because that's the one predator, a wolf, that the muskox has to watch out for, except for man. That's the one, so that at the muskox farm, they don't allow any dogs there and no making ears. At the muskox, they don't like that. So, and Cozy's being pretty stalwart about this. He's not letting that husky bother him. So now they're all starting to think about, he's getting kind of tired of them living underneath him. The house rules were stretched every day. When is a nibble, a bite. When was a hoot, quiet or loud. There was bumping, making faces, and nobody was saying they're sorry. You can see they're taking advantage of Cozy's good nature. And spring is coming, and so I got to show that by showing the rocks coming through and the rivers are melting. One sunny day, the lemmings were playing climb the ladder, and a great chunk of Cozy's coat came off. Then another hank came off in Snowy Owl's talons. Cozy remembered this from last year. Shedding meant it was finally spring in Alaska. Hank by hank, all of Cozy's warm, silky winter coat drifted down the slope. And now the animals are starting to look for another place to live, to his great relief. Cozy's lodgers started heading to their spring homes. Cozy hadn't felt so free and breezy since he was a cat. He jumped, he gambled, and then, in the middle of a gleeful leap, he saw his herd. So now he looks and finds his herd. And then I got to draw baby muskox, which I totally changed the story so I could draw baby muskox there. They probably are the cutest baby animal I have ever seen. He ran to join his mother, his father, and his brother. "Where were you? We were worried," said his sister Fluffy. "We missed you," said his brother Snuggly. "I made some new friends," Cozy said. But it was nice to get back to muskox ways. They all formed a circle with babies in the middle, but Cozy felt curiously alone. Then the breeze carried squeaky and growling and whistling voices. "See you next year, Cozy. Meet you when the snow flies, Cozy." The snowshoe hare thump, 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 as they all called. "We can't wait to get cozy with Cozy." They're all going to come back next year. And they really do form a little circle with horns out and the babies in the middle to protect them from wolves. So I thought that was a really interesting tidbit that I learned from some of my research. So last of all, I would like to say that I love my audience of children because they often see things that no one else bothers to notice, because I get their pointer finger out and they look through the pictures and they see things, even mistakes that I might have made, and tell me about them, and I love that. And the best thing about being an artist is, and I hope this will happen to you, I see that we have an artist right in the front. Sometimes when you're drawing, your mind goes in a different place, and what happened to me is I'll work late into the night, and I'll be drawing and drawing and drawing, and then I'll just be so sleepy that I'll just say, "Oh, time to go to bed," and I'll just leave everything there. And then when I wake up in the morning and see my artwork, it's like someone else has been there And that's almost like you have, some people call it a muse, or you have something deep inside of you that is going to make you draw something that you might not even think was interesting, but it becomes interesting in the drawing part. And that's why I love to illustrate, and I hope that that happens to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jen. That was so wonderful and
You're welcome.
adorable, and always really great to see it up close. So thank you so much for tonight.
Thank
And
you.
For those of you who would like to, so we're going to move to the book signing portion of the evening. And if you don't already have your books, you can purchase them right outside the door at the pop-up or our museum shop, one floor down. See you in the second